Republicans are now moving to defund Jack Smith, Big Fani Willis, and the other Trump prosecutions, and they want to do it through the appropriations process. We know Republicans are in charge of the House of Representatives, and so there are different tactics that people are talking about. Can Trump appeal? Can he go right up to the Supreme Court? Can Donald Trump maybe make certain defense arguments that would justify dismissals at early stages? There's a lot of different theories. Can we impeach the judge? Can Congress grant immunity for Donald Trump? A lot of different possibilities. But one tactic is to just defund everything. Cut their salaries, slash the positions, make the offices no longer get federal money, and so on. One guy who is leading one effort is called Representative Clyde, and we'll hear from him along with Representative Boebert, who is also saying that when Congress comes back in session, when Appropriations is back, they're going to defund these operations. Now, here's a quick summary about what's happening. This one is from MSNBC giving us an update. They are summarizing all of the various efforts from this guy.
A month to agree on a government funding deal or face a shutdown. Now, let's start with the fact that a government shutdown itself would not hinder Donald Trump's prosecutions. The Justice Department has said that criminal proceedings qualify as essential functions, and these essential functions continue even in the event of a funding lapse. So,
if funding lapses in September, criminal cases against Trump are going forward, so that's not going to be enough. They've got to go after other tactics.
What are Republicans trying to do instead? Trump allies in the House are trying to use government funding legislation to insert provisions that would defund or target the prosecutors that have indicted Trump. Let's have a look at what some of them are doing here. This Congressman Andrew Clyde, he is from Georgia. He is promising to introduce 2 amendments in appropriations legislation that would block all federal funds going to special counsel Jack Smith, Fulton County DA Fani Willis, as well as Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. He makes no bones about the fact that this is about their prosecuting Donald Trump. He wants to eliminate their authority to prosecute major presidential candidates until the 2024 election is done. There's Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, 2 staunch allies of Trump who about a month ago started calling for defunding the special counsel Jack Smith. There's Jim Jordan, the chairman of the powerful Judiciary Committee, who says he wants to restrict politically sensitive DOJ investigations, at least impose limits into how those are conducted. He has also launched an inquiry into Fani Willis. There's Andy Biggs, who called yesterday to straight up defund Fani Willis's office, at least block federal money, which is what Congress has control over, going to her. His posts have been heavily promoted by Donald Trump on his social media page, who has, Trump has also all sorts of invective against the various prosecutors who have secured indictments of him. Let's have a look at what...
So that's a nice summary, I think, of what's happening. One guy who has a strong position in all of this is Representative Clyde. And he actually came out with a press release that we'll read through, articulating what he intends to do. And then we'll see what Representative Boebert also has to say, because their Republicans are in charge of the House, and so they can certainly do this. But the question is, what happens when it lands over at the Senate? And is there any possibility of the White House keeping these defunding mechanisms in place in the bigger context of spending? This is Representative Andrew Clyde from Georgia.
But the penalty is the process.
Yes.
In what we're seeing right now. I mean, you've got 3 prosecutors, 2 state level, 1 federal, and what they're doing is these 4 sham indictments with 91 charges, and if this isn't election interference, then I don't know what this is. So we have to defund this at federal level. That's what Congress does. We use the power of the purse to make sure that our nation abides by the Constitution. And that's what we're doing here. So these 2 amendments, one which would defund any federal prosecution. Now, that doesn't mean investigation. They can investigate all they want, but they cannot prosecute before the American people have their say in the matter as to who is going to become the next president of the United States.
That seems pretty reasonable, doesn't it? Why can't the people just decide? We know that there were other decisions for other politicians about when they can prosecute, when they should not prosecute, because of, I think I hit the refresh button. I hit the refresh button. Don't you hate that? It's getting a little too manneristic over here. All right, so I forget the point I was going to make. Here is Representative Andrew Clyde.
Have their say in the matter.
That's the point. So elections, why can't the people just vote? Let us go to the ballot box. There's DOJ and other policies that say, when things are getting close to an election, we don't make any sudden moves. We don't make any big announcements lest we implicate the election. This is a pretty big one. And I know we're already in the middle of the election itself. Donald Trump has declared, we've already had debates, and they just keep indicting him. So he's saying we can just put a pause on that, okay? Keep the investigations going, indict him the day after the election if you want to, but don't interfere with the election.
As to who is going to become the next president of the United States. And then on the state level, it would deny all federal funding to any office, state or local office, that does the same thing, that prosecutes a major presidential candidate.
So pretty serious if they could actually get something like that through. Here are more details about what the program would entail. This is from Rep. Clyde's press release. He says, here is how it would work specifically. He's actively working on 2 amendments to the Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies, the CGS Appropriations Bill. That's going to be the fiscal year 2024, and it's going to specifically prohibit the use of federal funding for the prosecution of any major presidential candidate. So it's not only about Trump, it's anybody. And this might be a good rule, after this is over. Maybe we don't prosecute people who are running for presidential elections if you're a political opponent moving forward. Like, do we want to protect the sanctity of the elections or not? We're just going to let big fannies all over America just decide to prosecute people? One amendment would prevent taxpayer dollars from funding the feds, while a second would prohibit funding for states. He says, Fani, Jack, and Alvin intentionally brought 4 sham indictments. These bogus charges are intended to smear and take down Trump, and I've got serious concerns about this. So the House Appropriations Committee is expected to mark up the bill when members return to Washington in September. So should be soon. We'll see if they actually do it or not. We do know that he's not alone. Lauren Boebert, representative, also is hinting at this. Washington Examiner says that they're going after salaries. They're talking about slashing amendments to the Defense Appropriations Bill. So Lauren Boebert from Colorado, she plans to introduce several amendments to the Department of Defense Appropriations Bill, so a different provision, following through on a threat from hardline conservatives. She says that she plans on filing multiple amendments to use the Holman Rule to cut the salaries of DOD officials. But I don't know does this relate to Trump? While a spokesperson for Boebert didn't go into detail on who she plans to target. So they're just cutting budgets all over the place, I guess. And I don't know that this necessarily applies to Donald Trump, but this is something that they're thinking about doing. And I don't really buy it, to be perfectly blunt with you here. They told us that this is what they were going to do, and they passed that disgusting spending bill, and we'll see if anything actually goes through. But I do like the effort from Clyde. The idea that you can just defund the prosecution is one way to go about it. At least it's something. We'll see if they make any progress on it when Congress is back in session. I do hope you subscribe as we continue to cover. We'll see you on the next one.